Snap unveils $2,195 SPAC AR glasses for fall shipment. Positioned more like enterprise hardware than consumer eyewear, early orders will concentrate among app developers and select retailers. This leaves the company dependent on software revenue to offset the steep component costs. Meta gains breathing room to refine its own lighter models without matching that premium feature set immediately. Developer traction by Q2 will decide if Snap must pursue OEM partnerships to reach volume. Asensus Surgical to cut 108 jobs in restructuring. Hospitals using the older platforms lose dedicated support staff first. Remaining resources now shift toward regulatory filings for the next generation system due in 18 months. Intuitive Surgical gains an easier path to renewals in those accounts, while cash burn declines each quarter. The restructuring shows direct feature competition has become unsustainable at current spending levels. EigenQ enters $3 billion SPAC merger with Silicon Valley acquisition. Valued at $3 billion with a close still 18 months away, the structure lets current owners lock in gains before technical milestones arrive. Rivals now face a public comp that inflates expectations for their next rounds. Government procurement teams will treat the valuation as a benchmark when reviewing bids. Any delay in error-corrected qubits beyond lab settings will hit the stock directly. Texas Ventures acquisition IV prices $150 million to Prussia IPO. Another $150 million lands in an industrial tech SPA biz price, just as interest rates keep traditional growth funds cautious. Sponsors will hunt targets with existing factory footprints rather than pure software plays. That focus forces operating companies in automation to field inbound calls they previously ignored. Any de-SPAC premium will depend on backlog visibility, not hype metrics. Go Ride Hail app completes Tokyo IPO for robotaxi pivot. Capital from the listing flows straight into autonomous development instead of adding drivers to the current network. Regulators gain a listed company they can hold to specific deployment timelines. This pressures overseas robotaxi operators to either partner locally or accelerate their own regulatory filings in the region. Success rests on hitting autonomous ride targets within 2 years before the raised funds are exhausted. Snap shares decline after AR glasses pricing reveal. The $500 plus tag on the new specs tells you Snap has given up chasing the mass market that Meta still claims it can reach. Instead, the company is positioning the device as a creator tool, which narrows the total addressable buyers to a few 100,000 at best. Meta now has a clearer runway to own the broader smart glasses volume if it keeps its own pricing under $300 through next year. Watch the supplier orders. If Snap cuts its waveguide volumes in half, the unit economics for everyone else shift overnight. Forefront Tech Holdings SPAC units to trade separately June 22. Separate trading of shares and warrants is the market's way of saying the sponsor still needs more time to find a target. June 22 only marks when arbitrage desks can start stripping the units. Most vehicles that hit this step without a signed LOI already on file liquidate inside 18 months. The real signal will be whether the sponsor adds more at-risk capital before that date arrives. Progress Clonu is the uncredited DRO rail. 2027. The conditions of the Fenkalira Gosrex Stumersly Freethers. Cresis from Avamalotnot will be ready Holm at Feasibly. Skatek reaches financial close on 120 megabaud Feasibly Morzawatt. Custilo is cited as the global premier factorial sheep Emmertange looks in the Pricefort post. Besagwan Hodath by Retentor. By Q2 Heidelect Wallesond on natural flunt quarteril. From CTE through Pluto Sharthly. That changes the return profile the lenders signed off on. EigenQ quantum firm targets critical infrastructure in SPAC deal. Defense budgets for quantum-secured infrastructure just gained a listed company to tap without private round restrictions. The SPAC route bypasses the usual venture scrutiny that kept earlier players private longer than expected. EigenQ now faces a direct public rival on the same DoD shortlists for grid projects. That pressure likely forces them to disclose more hardware metrics by next earnings cycle or watch allocations slip to the new entrant. Grid operators gain a new bidder for quantum encryption upgrades starting next fiscal year. No easy, Snap. Snap SPAC's positioned as standalone computing platform. The wireless push shifts the competitive frame from smartphone tethering to true edge compute for AR. Meta's Orion program now has a public benchmark on power draw and form factor that its next prototype must beat before 2026 developer conferences. App makers building spatial experiences will test Snap's SDK first, delaying equivalent work on rival hardware until compatibility questions clear. Full availability will accelerate that testing window for developers already allocated to mixed reality projects. Robotic surgery firm Asensus implements workforce reduction. Workforce reduction at this scale typically trims clinical support teams first in robotics medtech. That move risks slower hospital adoption of uptime before expanding deployments next quarter. Quantum tech merger values EigenQ at $3 billion. Pro forma enterprise value at $3 billion sets a high bar for any quantum peer seeking its own public exit. Private companies like PSI Quantum will now field tougher questions from late-stage investors on path to similar marks. That scrutiny likely delays their own SPAC talks until after the first public quarter. Revenue scale will face immediate scrutiny from public market investors. Defense contract benchmarks will decide follow-on funding access. Go IPO raises fresh capital for autonomy expansion. Tokyo investors price autonomy execution cheaper than US or Chinese buyers have paid. Go can now secure exclusive robotaxi integration deals with 2 suppliers before March. That exclusivity pushes Toyota's mobility division to offer deeper subsidies on its own hardware to other fleet operators inside Japan within the next fiscal year. The capital also accelerates mapping coverage across secondary cities. Local operators without similar funding will face higher per-ride costs once Go's network comes online. AR glasses launch highlights, Snap hardware push. Specs launch at a price that skips the usual developer ramp entirely. Meta now faces a direct choice: cut its own AR glass pricing to match, or watch early fashion-conscious buyers migrate before holiday season. Supply chain partners already see Meta accelerating component orders to close that gap inside 2 quarters. The move also pressures lens suppliers shared with Google. Those vendors must now allocate capacity or risk losing volume from both sides when shipments begin. SPAC activity includes Texas Ventures Industrial Focus. The SPAC industrial focus changes how energy transition assets get valued. Regional funds must replicate the blank check model or lose their top IoT and logistics companies to public sponsors within the next 4 quarters. 2 portfolio founders have quietly opened data rooms already, betting the public route clears faster than another VC round rather than software metrics alone. Asensus Surgical restructuring targets cost savings. Morrisville engineering teams lose 108 positions, mostly in platform development. The resulting delay lets Intuitive Surgical lock in 3 more hospital system contracts before Asensus can field a lower-cost alternative. Procurement officers at those systems have already extended upgrade timelines accordingly. Sales teams now focus on international markets where Intuitive holds less sway. Yet the cost savings may not cover lost domestic revenue if those contracts close first. EigenQ SPAC deal advances quantum commercialization. The merger accelerates deployment timelines that now favor hardware vendors with physical systems ready. Defense agencies plan to mandate on-premise processors in all RFPs issued after Q2. EigenQ must either build a dedicated hardware line or accept secondary roles on those deals within 12 months. Enterprise customers in finance will likely follow the same requirement once they see the government language. This shift raises barriers for pure software quantum plays across the board.